The early morning sun streamed through the airport windows as Sophia Carter adjusted her neatly tied bun and straightened the navy blue blazer of her crisp flight attendant uniform. Today was supposed to be like any other day, a long shift, polite smiles, and catering to wealthy passengers who barely noticed her presence. But deep down, Sophia always took pride in her work. It wasn't just about serving drinks or fluffing pillows. For her, it was about creating a safe and comfortable space thousands of feet in the air. This morning, however, carried a weight of nervous anticipation. She wasn't flying on a regular commercial plane. This was a private jet, owned by one of the most powerful men in the country, Alexander Kane. The name alone made her stomach twist. Kane was a billionaire CEO known for his ruthless business tactics and cold, calculated demeanor. Stories about his temper were whispered among airline crews, but Sophia had never met him in person. As she entered the jet's cabin, the sheer luxury of it took her breath away. Plush leather seats gleamed under soft ambient lighting. Crystal glasses sat perfectly arranged on polished wood tables. The air smelled faintly of expensive cologne and leather. Everything was pristine, immaculate, just like Alexander Kane's carefully cultivated image. The crew was tense, moving quickly and silently as they prepared for takeoff. Marianne, Sophia's strict supervisor, approached her with a clipped tone. "Carter, remember, this client expects perfection. No mistakes, no delays, no attitude. Understood?" Sophia forced a polite smile. "Understood, ma'am." Just then, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed down the aisle. Alexander Kane entered, tall and imposing in his tailored black suit. His sharp, icy gaze swept over the cabin, making everyone instinctively stand a little straighter. He didn't offer greetings or pleasantries, just a curt nod before settling into his seat like a king on his throne. "Champagne," he barked without looking up. Sophia hurried to serve him, masking her irritation behind a professional facade. She had dealt with demanding passengers before, but there was something about Kane's presence that felt different, more dangerous, more unpredictable. As the jet ascended into the clouds, Sophia couldn't shake a strange feeling gnawing at her gut. Today wasn't just another flight. Something was coming, something that would change her life forever, and it all started with the man sitting just a few feet away. The jet leveled off smoothly above the clouds, its engines humming softly. Sophia moved through the cabin with practiced grace, ensuring every detail was perfect. Alexander Kane sat at the head of the cabin's table, scrolling through his sleek tablet, his jaw tight and expression unreadable. He exuded power, cold, detached power that seemed to dominate the entire space. Sophia placed a glass of champagne before him carefully. "Your drink, sir," she said politely, keeping her voice calm and professional. Alexander glanced up briefly, his piercing blue eyes narrowing. "It took you long enough." His tone was sharp, dismissive, as if she were nothing more than an inconvenience. "I apologize, sir," Sophia replied smoothly, refusing to let her voice waver. She had been warned about his temper. Still, his rudeness stung. Across the cabin, Marianne, Sophia's supervisor, gave her a pointed look as if to say, "Don't mess this up." Sophia swallowed her irritation and turned her attention to the other preparations. The flight was expected to last several hours, and Kane was their only passenger. That meant every ounce of focus was on him, and he knew it. As the minutes passed, his demands grew increasingly unreasonable. "Why is this coffee lukewarm? Bring me a fresh cup. These seats are uncomfortable. Adjust them. Do you have any idea how much this jet costs me per hour? I expect better service than this." Each comment was like a slap in the face, but Sophia endured it with quiet dignity. Years of experience had taught her how to remain composed under pressure. Still, her hands trembled slightly as she poured a second cup of coffee. Rachel, another attendant and Sophia's closest friend on the crew, whispered as she passed by, "Hang in there, Soph. He's just testing you." Sophia forced a small, tight smile. "Yeah, testing how much patience I have left," she muttered under her breath. Halfway through the flight, Alexander began making cutting remarks that felt more personal. He scrutinized her appearance, her voice, even her posture. "Stand up straight. You look like you're slouching," he snapped. When Sophia corrected herself, he smirked as though he'd won a game only he was playing. Finally, during a turbulence-free moment, he crossed a line. As Sophia leaned over to clear his empty plate, Alexander's hand brushed her wrist. Not by accident, but deliberately. "You know," he said smoothly, his voice low and suggestive, You'd be much more useful to me if you stopped pretending to be just a flight attendant. Sophia froze, stunned by the audacity of his remark. Excuse me, sir? She asked, keeping her tone even though her heart pounded. Alexander leaned back, smirking. Oh, don't act so innocent. You think I can't tell when someone wants to impress me? Women like you, always looking for a way up. His words cut deep. For a moment, Sophia couldn't breathe. This wasn't just arrogance, it was an outright insult to her integrity. She set the plate down firmly, her fingers curling into fists. With all due respect, Mr. Kane, I'm here to do my job. Nothing more, she said, her voice icy. Mary Ann's sharp intake of breath from across the cabin warned her that she'd just taken a risk. Alexander's smirk vanished, replaced by a cold, dangerous glare. Careful, he said softly. You don't want to make an enemy of me. The tension in the cabin became suffocating. Rachel shot Sophia a worried glance, silently begging her to let it go. But Sophia's pride burned hotter than her fear. She had faced condescending passengers before, but never someone who wielded this kind of power or cruelty. As the jet soared on, Sophia realized that this flight was more than a job. It was a test of her boundaries, her dignity, and her courage, and Alexander Kane seemed determined to push her past her breaking point. Sophia took a deep breath, silently vowing that she wouldn't let him see her break. Not now, not ever. What she didn't know was that Alexander had no intention of stopping, and the worst was yet to come. The jet glided smoothly through the open sky, the cabin so quiet that the soft hum of the engines felt louder than usual. Sophia could feel the tension clinging to the air like static. Every time she walked past Alexander Kane, her chest tightened, as if an invisible hand were pressing against it. His earlier remark still echoed in her mind, disgusting, demeaning, and utterly unprofessional. She tried to focus on her duties, forcing herself to breathe evenly. Just a few more hours, she reminded herself. Then this flight will be over, and I'll never have to see this man again. Rachel approached with a tray of refreshments, giving Sophia a sympathetic glance. You okay? Rachel whispered. Define okay, Sophia muttered, managing a weak smile. Hang in there. He's a nightmare, but he's still a paying client. Just play it safe. Sophia nodded, though every instinct in her screamed to do the opposite. Meanwhile, Alexander sat reclined in his plush leather seat, swirling the champagne in his glass as if he had all the time in the world. His expensive watch glinted under the cabin lights. There was something predatory about the way he studied Sophia. His gaze calculated, assessing as if he were analyzing her every move. He called out suddenly, his deep voice cutting through the silence. Miss Carter, over here. Sophia's pulse spiked, but she turned, expression neutral. Yes, Mr. Kane? Refill, he demanded, holding out his glass without looking at her. She took it, filled it carefully, and returned it to him. Just as she began to step away, he grabbed her wrist, not hard, but enough to make her stop. I don't think you understand who you're talking to, Alexander said smoothly, his lips curling into a cold smile. Do you have any idea how many people would kill for the chance to be in this cabin, to be near me? And yet here you are acting like you're above it all. Sophia's breath caught. With respect, sir, my job is to provide service, not whatever this is. She gestured vaguely between them, her voice clipped. His grip tightened just slightly, his smirk deepening. You think you can talk to me like that and keep your job? Mary Ann's sharp voice cut in, panic lacing her tone. Mr. Kane, perhaps we should stay out of this, Alexander snapped, his icy glare silencing her instantly. Sophia yanked her wrist free, anger bubbling to the surface. I've dealt with difficult passengers before, but you... She stopped herself, teeth clenched. You have no right to speak to me that way. The billionaire rose slowly from his seat, towering over her. His presence was overwhelming, his confidence radiating like heat. No right? He echoed, his voice dangerously soft. Sophia, I own this plane. I own the company that employs you. You're standing in my world, breathing my air. You have no power here. For a split second, Sophia faltered. A flicker of fear shot through her, but she refused to let it show. She straightened her spine, meeting his glare head-on. Power doesn't give you the right to treat people like garbage. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Rachel gasped quietly, and even Mary Ann looked horrified. Alexander's expression darkened. He stepped closer, so close that Sophia could see the sharp lines of his perfectly tailored black suit, and the glint of anger in his eyes. "You'll regret that," he said, his voice low and dangerous. Then, without warning, he reached out again, not to grab her this time, but to shove her shoulder lightly, a gesture meant to assert dominance rather than cause harm. Sophia's restraint snapped like a frayed wire. Before she could think, before she could stop herself, her hand flew across his face with a sharp, echoing slap. The sound was deafening in the silent cabin. Everyone froze. Rachel's tray clattered to the floor and Marianne's hands flew to her mouth in shock. Alexander didn't move for a moment. His head turned slightly from the impact. Slowly he straightened, one hand brushing his cheek where a red mark was already forming. His eyes burned with an intensity that made Sophia's stomach twist. "You just made the biggest mistake of your life," he said, each word cold and deliberate. Sophia's heart pounded so hard she thought it might burst. She realized with chilling clarity what she had done. This wasn't just any passenger. This was a man who held immense power, wealth, and influence, and she had just humiliated him in front of witnesses. Rachel whispered, "Sophia, what did you do?" Sophia didn't answer. Her breath came in quick, shallow gasps as the reality of the situation crashed over her. Alexander didn't shout. He didn't rage. Instead, he sat back down slowly, his calm demeanor somehow more terrifying than if he had exploded. "Sit tight, ladies," he said smoothly, his voice like velvet over steel. "When we land, we're going to have a very different conversation." Sophia's knees nearly gave out, but she forced herself to stand tall. She refused to cower, even as dread coiled in her gut like a living thing. From this moment on, she knew one thing for certain. Nothing about her life, or this flight, would ever be the same again. The jet's descent felt agonizingly slow, as though the plane itself understood the storm brewing inside the cabin. Sophia stood stiffly near the galley, her mind racing. Every breath felt heavy, her chest tight with dread. She replayed the moment in her head, the sharp crack of her palm against Alexander Kane's face, the stunned silence that followed, the cold promise in his voice. Rachel hovered close by, whispering frantically, "Sophia, when we land, you need to apologize. Just grovel if you have to, please. This man is dangerous." Sophia shook her head, her hands trembling but her voice firm. "I won't apologize for defending myself." "He crossed a line, Rachel." Marianne, who had been pacing anxiously, whirled on her. "Do you have any idea what you've done? He could ruin you with a single phone call. Our entire crew could lose our jobs, maybe more. This isn't just about you, Carter." Sophia's jaw tightened. She understood the stakes, but backing down felt like betraying herself. Still, fear clawed at the edges of her resolve. She wasn't naive. Alexander Kane wasn't just a rich man with a temper. He was a force of nature. The landing was smooth, eerily so, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. When the plane taxied to a stop, 2 black SUVs were already waiting on the tarmac. Alexander rose from his seat with slow, deliberate movements. His face was an unreadable mask of calm, but his icy gaze sent shivers down Sophia's spine. "Ladies," he said evenly, adjusting the cuffs of his tailored black suit, "remain on board. I'll be handling this matter personally." Without another word, he exited the plane, flanked by 2 imposing men in suits who had been waiting outside. Rachel grabbed Sophia's arm the moment he was gone. "This is bad. This is so bad. We need to stick together, okay? Whatever happens, we don't let him separate us." Marianne, however, looked ready to faint. "You two don't understand. Kane isn't just powerful. He's connected to people in politics, law enforcement, even the media. If he decides to destroy you, Sophia, there's nowhere you can hide." Sophia didn't answer. Her stomach churned as she stared out the window at the sleek SUVs. A cold certainty settled over her. This wasn't going to be resolved with words or apologies. Alexander had been humiliated, and men like him didn't forgive or forget. The cabin door opened suddenly, and one of the suited men stepped inside. "Miss Carter," he said, his tone clipped and professional. "Mr. Kane would like a word. Alone." Rachel immediately stepped forward. "She's not going anywhere without one of us." The man's expression didn't change. That wasn't a request. Sophia squeezed Rachel's hand reassuringly, though her own legs felt weak. "It's okay. I'll be fine." She forced herself to sound braver than she felt. As she descended the stairs, the cool night air hit her like a slap. The runway lights cast harsh shadows, making the scene feel surreal. Alexander stood beside the SUV, his hands clasped behind his back, looking every bit the untouchable titan of industry. "Sophia," he said smoothly, almost pleasantly, "walk with me." She hesitated but obeyed, following him a few paces away from the plane. The suited men lingered nearby like silent sentinels. "You've had a few hours to think," Alexander began, his tone conversational. "I imagine you've realized the gravity of your mistake." Sophia squared her shoulders. "If you're expecting an apology, you won't get one. You crossed a line and I defended myself." He chuckled softly, though there was no warmth in the sound. "Defended yourself? You struck me. In my plane. In front of my employees." His voice sharpened, each word precise and cutting. "Do you understand what that means for my reputation?" Sophia's anger flared, momentarily overpowering her fear. "Your reputation? You treated me like an object, like I didn't matter. Respect goes both ways, Mr. Kane." For a brief moment something flickered in his eyes, surprise perhaps, or admiration. But it was gone as quickly as it appeared, replaced by cold calculation. "You're brave," he admitted. "Foolishly so. Most people grovel when faced with consequences. You fight back." Sophia clenched her fists. "I'm not afraid of you." Alexander smiled, a slow, dangerous curve of his lips. "Oh, but you should be." He stepped closer, lowering his voice so only she could hear. "I could ruin you with a single phone call. Make sure no airline hires you again. Make sure no company dares put you on their payroll. One moment of defiance and your entire career is ashes." Sophia's throat tightened, but she forced herself to meet his gaze. "Then do it. If standing up for myself costs me everything, so be it." For a long, tense moment, they stared at each other. Sophia's heart pounded, but she didn't look away. Finally, Alexander laughed softly, shaking his head. "You really are something else, Sophia Carter." He gestured toward the SUV. "Get in." Her stomach dropped. "What? No, I'm not going anywhere with you." "You misunderstand," he said smoothly. "We're not leaving the airport, yet. But we are going to have a conversation, privately." Sophia's pulse raced, but before she could protest further, two of the suited men stepped forward. Rachel's voice rang out from the plane, panicked and desperate.
"Sophia, don't go with them!"
Sophia glanced back, catching sight of her friend's terrified face through the window. She swallowed hard, forcing herself to project calm. "It's okay, Rachel. I'll be fine." The men didn't touch her, but their presence was enough to make it clear she had no real choice. Inside the SUV, the air smelled of leather and faint cologne. The tinted windows gave everything an ominous, enclosed feeling. Alexander slid in beside her, perfectly composed. "Here's the thing about power," he said conversationally, as though they were discussing the weather. "It's not about money or influence. It's about perception. People believe I'm untouchable because I act untouchable." Sophia crossed her arms, refusing to shrink into her seat. "Is this supposed to intimidate me?" "No," he replied smoothly. "It's supposed to educate you." He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a silky whisper. "You can fight me, Sophia. You can hate me. But in the end, you'll see what everyone sees. That I always win." Sophia's pulse thundered in her ears, but she held his gaze. In that moment, a silent vow formed in her heart. She would not let this man break her. No matter what he did, no matter how powerful he was, she would find a way to stand tall. The SUV remained parked on the tarmac. Two opposing wills locked in a quiet battle. Neither spoke, but the war between them had only just begun. The SUV door clicked shut, sealing Sophia inside with Alexander Kane. The silence that followed was suffocating, broken only by the faint hum of the idling engine outside. Alexander sat beside her, his posture perfect, his expression unnervingly calm. He didn't speak right away, and the stillness made Sophia's skin crawl. Finally, he turned to her, his voice low and deliberate. "Sophia, do you know why people fear me?" Sophia's hands tightened into fists on her lap. "Because you use your wealth and power to control them," she said, her voice sharp. A small, humorless smile curved Alexander's lips. "Partly true, but it's more than that. People fear me because they know resisting me is pointless. When I decide to destroy someone, it's already too late for them." Sophia met his gaze, refusing to look away. "Then why am I still here? If you're so powerful, why not just make a call and end my career like you threatened?" Alexander's eyes glimmered with something unreadable. Curiosity, perhaps, or amusement. "Because you intrigue me, Sophia. Most people in your position would be begging by now. You're different. You don't break easily. Sophia's heart pounded, but she forced her voice to stay steady. I'm not a pawn in your little game. Oh, but you are, Alexander countered smoothly. He leaned closer, his presence overwhelming. You see, this isn't about a slap. It's about perception. You humiliated me in front of witnesses. If I let that go unchallenged, others will think they can defy me too. That cannot happen. Sophia's breath caught. So what now? You make an example out of me? Exactly. His tone was almost casual, as if he were discussing a business deal rather than a person's life. But here's the twist, you get to choose how this ends. Sophia frowned, wary. Choose? Alexander leaned back, watching her intently. Option 1, you resign quietly. I'll make a few calls and you'll receive a generous severance package. You disappear from the industry with your dignity, mostly intact. No lawsuits, no scandal. And option 2? Sophia asked, though she already dreaded the answer. His smile was cold and sharp. I destroy you, publicly. I'll leak a story that paints you as the aggressor. That slap, it becomes an assault. Your career ends in disgrace and no airline will touch you. I'll even make sure you're blacklisted from other industries. You'll be unemployable, broke, and forgotten. Sophia's stomach churned, but she kept her face neutral. Those aren't choices. That's a threat. Alexander shrugged elegantly. Call it what you will. The outcome is the same. You walk away or I make you crawl. For a moment, Sophia said nothing. The SUV felt smaller with each passing second, the air heavy with unspoken tension. She thought of Rachel and Marianne still on the plane, probably terrified for her. She thought of her own future, the career she had built with years of hard work and sacrifice. And then she thought of Alexander's smug expression, his belief that he could bend anyone to his will. Sophia's jaw set. You think you've already won? That I'll roll over because you have money and power. But you're wrong. Alexander's brows lifted slightly, intrigued. Am I? Yes. Her voice was steady now, filled with a quiet, simmering strength. You can take my job, my reputation, even my income. But you can't take me. You can't control who I am or what I stand for. For the first time, Alexander's mask of control slipped. A flicker of genuine surprise crossed his face before he quickly smoothed it away. You really don't understand how this works, he said softly, almost to himself. Sophia leaned forward, her eyes blazing. No, you don't understand. People like you think fear is loyalty, but fear fades. Power fades, and when it does, people like me are still standing. The words hung in the air, sharp and unyielding. Alexander studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Finally, he exhaled slowly, almost like a man savoring a challenge. You're making this interesting, Sophia. Very well. Let's see how far you're willing to go. He tapped on the glass and the SUV door opened. One of the suited men appeared, his face blank. Return her to the plane, Alexander instructed smoothly. Then he turned back to Sophia, his smile returning like a blade sliding from its sheath. Enjoy the flight home. It may be the last one you take as a free woman. Sophia's stomach dropped, but she lifted her chin high. She wouldn't let him see her fear. As she stepped out of the SUV, Rachel rushed forward, nearly in tears. What happened? Are you okay? Sophia hugged her tightly, whispering, I'm fine. But this isn't over. Rachel pulled back, wide-eyed. Sophia, what are you going to do? Sophia glanced over her shoulder at Alexander, who stood watching like a predator, confident of his prey. Her voice was calm, but her resolve burned bright. I'm going to fight back. The return flight was painfully silent. Sophia sat rigid in her jump seat near the galley, her thoughts racing faster than the jet slicing through the clouds. Rachel sat beside her, hands clasped tightly, while Marianne kept glancing nervously at Alexander, who lounged in his leather seat as though nothing unusual had happened. His calmness was infuriating, a reminder of how secure he felt in his power. Rachel finally broke the silence, whispering, Sophia, please tell me you're not actually thinking of fighting him. You heard what he said, he'll ruin you. Sophia turned to her friend, her eyes fierce. He thinks he can ruin me, but people like him thrive because no one ever challenges them. If I let this go, he'll keep doing it. To me, to other women, to anyone he thinks he can control. Marianne leaned forward, her voice low but urgent. Listen to me, Carter. I've been in this industry for 20 years. Men like Alexander Kane, they don't lose. You'll get crushed. Sophia's jaw tightened. Maybe. But I'd rather fight and lose than spend the rest of my life wondering what would have happened if I stood my ground. Rachel swallowed hard, knowing there was no changing her friend's mind. Then you'd better have a plan, she whispered. Sophia didn't respond, but her mind was already working furiously. She knew she couldn't beat Alexander with money or influence. He had the media, the legal system, and countless connections at his disposal. But maybe she could beat him with truth. When they landed, Alexander exited first, flanked by his men. He didn't even glance at Sophia as he left, as if she were beneath his notice. That slight stung more than his threats. As the crew gathered their things, Sophia pulled Rachel aside. I need a favor. Do you still have that cousin who works in IT? Rachel frowned, confused. Yeah, why? Can you get me his number? Sophia's voice was urgent. I need someone who knows how to dig for information. Emails, files, anything that proves what kind of man Alexander really is. Rachel hesitated. Sophia, this is risky. If you get caught... Sophia gripped her friend's hand. Please. If I don't find something to fight back with, he'll crush me. I need leverage. Rachel nodded reluctantly. Okay, but be careful. That night, Sophia sat in her small apartment, her uniform still hanging neatly in her closet like a ghost of the day's events. She spoke with Rachel's cousin, Derek, over a secure video call. Derek was a wiry man with quick eyes and quicker fingers, clearly used to working behind the scenes. You're asking me to dig into Alexander Kane's digital footprint? Derek asked, eyebrows raised. Yes, Sophia said firmly. I need proof. Emails, documents, anything that shows he's been abusing his power. I know he's done shady things. I just need to prove it. Derek whistled low. You're talking about going up against one of the most powerful CEOs in the country. If he finds out you're looking into him, he'll come after you. Sophia's voice didn't waver. He's already coming after me. This is my only chance to fight back. Derek studied her for a moment, then nodded. All right, but it's going to take time and luck. Over the next few days, Sophia lived a double life. By day, she went through the motions at work, acting as though nothing had changed. By night, she met with Derek in secret, reviewing the data he uncovered piece by piece. The deeper they dug, the more disturbing the picture became. There were questionable financial transactions, secret meetings with government officials, and even evidence of harassment settlements quietly paid off to silence victims. One night, Derek leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. This guy is dirtier than I thought. If half of this got out, it would destroy him. Sophia stared at the files spread across the table, her stomach twisting. Good. Then we keep going until we have enough to take him down completely. Derek hesitated. Sophia, you need to be careful. If Kane catches wind of this, he won't just ruin your career. He'll come after you personally. Sophia's expression hardened. Then let him come. I'm done being afraid of him. 2 nights later, they found the smoking gun, a series of emails between Alexander and a senator discussing illegal lobbying and corporate payoffs. Sophia's breath caught as she read the words. This is it. This proves he's been breaking the law. Derek nodded grimly. It's explosive, all right. But if you release it, you'll be painting a target on your back. Sophia clenched her fists. Then I'll aim first. She knew she had to act fast. Alexander wouldn't expect her to strike so boldly, and surprise was her only advantage. As dawn broke, Sophia felt a surge of determination. For the first time since this nightmare began, she wasn't just reacting to Alexander's moves, she was making her own. And she was ready to show him that no one, no matter how rich or powerful, was truly untouchable. Sophia barely slept that night. The incriminating emails between Alexander and the senator burned in her mind like a live wire. She sat at her kitchen table staring at her laptop screen, knowing she now held the power to destroy him, or to destroy herself if she made the wrong move. Rachel arrived early the next morning, worry etched into her face. You look like you've been up all night, she said, handing Sophia a coffee. I have, Sophia admitted, wrapping her hands around the warm cup. But it was worth it. Derek found something huge, Rachel. This isn't just about harassment or intimidation anymore. It's criminal. If this gets out, Alexander's entire empire will collapse. Rachel's eyes widened. Sophia, that's dangerous. Do you really think you can go up against someone like him and win? Sophia nodded slowly. I don't just think it, I know it. But I can't do it alone. I need people I can trust, and I need to be smart about how I play this. Sophia spent the next few hours crafting a meticulous plan. She knew she couldn't just release the files randomly. Alexander's team would spin the story, discredit her, and bury the truth before it even saw daylight. Instead, she reached out to Liam Parker, a respected investigative journalist known for exposing corporate corruption. They arranged to meet in a quiet cafe far from the city center. When Liam arrived, Sophia slid a flash drive across the table. "This," she said quietly, "is everything you need to bring down Alexander Kane. Financial crimes, political corruption, harassment cover-ups, it's all there." Liam raised an eyebrow. "You're aware that going public with this could make you a target, right? Kane has friends in high places. If I run this story, there's no going back." Sophia's voice was steady. "I understand, but the public has a right to know who he really is. I'm done letting him hide behind his money and power." The journalist studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "All right, but if I'm going to publish this, I need sources on people willing to go on record. Otherwise, he'll claim it's fabricated." Sophia took a deep breath. "You'll have them. I've already spoken to a few former employees who are ready to come forward once this hits the press." Meanwhile, Alexander remained blissfully unaware of the storm gathering around him. He was busy planning a high-profile corporate event to announce a major new deal. Cameras, investors, and government officials would all be present, the perfect setting for him to flaunt his power. But Sophia saw the event as the perfect battleground. If Liam released the story right before Alexander's big announcement, it would be impossible for him to control the narrative. Sophia spent the next 2 days coordinating with Derek, Rachel, and Liam. They timed everything down to the minute. The article would drop online just as Alexander stepped onto the stage, ensuring maximum chaos. The morning of the event arrived, tense and electric. Sophia dressed carefully, wearing a sharp black blazer and slacks, a uniform of quiet strength. Rachel squeezed her hand before they entered the venue. "Are you sure about this?" she whispered. Sophia's eyes burned with determination. "Absolutely. This ends today." Inside, Alexander was in his element. Cameras flashed as he greeted investors and politicians with his signature smug smile. Sophia stood at the edge of the crowd, her phone in hand, waiting for Liam's signal. Her heart pounded as the seconds ticked by. Then her phone buzzed. "It's live." Sophia glanced up just in time to see Alexander step onto the stage, completely unaware that his empire was seconds away from crumbling. A ripple of murmurs spread through the audience as phones began to light up. Screens flashed headlines. "Billionaire CEO Alexander Kane exposed in political bribery scandal." Sophia allowed herself a small, fierce smile. The trap had been set, and Alexander had just walked straight into it. As Alexander stepped onto the stage, his trademark smirk firmly in place, the room was already buzzing with confusion. Dozens of people were staring down at their phones, whispering furiously to one another. The once friendly atmosphere shifted into something sharp and tense. At first, Alexander didn't notice. He raised a hand to quiet the crowd, preparing to launch into his carefully rehearsed speech. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here today," he began, his voice carrying the weight of arrogance and certainty. "This marks the beginning of a bold new chapter for Kane Enterprises." He was cut off by a loud shout from the audience. "Is it true you've been bribing government officials?" The question sliced through the room like a knife. Cameras swiveled toward the reporter who had spoken, and a wave of murmurs erupted. Alexander's confident facade faltered for a brief second before he recovered, forcing a smile. "I have no idea what you're talking about. That's a ridiculous accusation." But before he could continue, another voice shouted, "What about the harassment lawsuits you covered up? Care to explain those?" The murmurs turned into outright chaos. Flashes from cameras became blinding as reporters yelled over each other, demanding answers. Alexander's face turned pale. He glanced toward his communications director, who was frantically checking her phone. She rushed to his side, whispering urgently in his ear. Sophia, watching from the back of the room, saw the exact moment the truth sank in. His posture stiffened, his smirk vanished, and raw panic flickered in his eyes. On the large screen behind him, someone projected the headline from Liam's article. "Alexander Kane, the corruption behind the empire." Beneath it were damning excerpts from the leaked emails, complete with timestamps and names of co-conspirators and including the senator. The crowd erupted. Investors began shouting at Alexander. some storming out entirely while others recorded the spectacle on their phones. "This is slander," Alexander roared, his voice cracking. "These so-called documents are fake. I will destroy whoever did this." Sophia stepped forward, her heels clicking sharply against the marble floor. The crowd parted instinctively as she approached the stage, her presence commanding attention. "They're not fake," she said clearly, her voice cutting through the noise. "Every word in that article is true, and I made sure the world saw it." Alexander froze, staring at her as though she were a ghost. "You?" he hissed. "You did this to me?" Sophia's expression was calm, almost serene. "No, Alexander. You did this to yourself. I just held up the mirror." Gasps rippled through the room. Cameras swung toward her, capturing the moment. "You think you can humiliate me and get away with it?" Alexander snarled, his composure slipping completely. "You're nothing. A nobody." Sophia met his gaze steadily. "Maybe I was in your eyes. But today I made sure everyone sees you for what you really are. A predator who thinks power makes him untouchable." Security moved in as Alexander's shouting grew incoherent. His investors were already pulling their support, phones buzzing with messages from lawyers and board members. The senator implicated in the scandal had gone silent, leaving Alexander completely exposed. Within minutes, his empire began to crumble in real time. Reporters swarmed the stage, shouting questions. Alexander, red-faced and sputtering, was escorted out by his own security team. Later, Sophia stood outside the venue with Rachel and Liam. The cool evening air felt like the first real breath she'd taken in weeks. "It's over," Rachel said, hugging her tightly. "You did it." Sophia nodded, though her eyes were distant. "No," she said quietly. "We did it. Everyone who spoke up, everyone who refused to be silenced, this was for them." Liam slipped his hands into his pockets, a small smile playing on his lips. "The article's already going viral. By morning, the world will know exactly who Alexander Kane really is." Sophia turned to look back at the now chaotic venue. "Good," she said firmly, "because men like him don't deserve to hide in the shadows." As the first flash of police lights lit up the night sky, Sophia finally allowed herself to exhale. Justice had been served, and for the first time in a long time she felt free.